Hey, what's up? Jason Chambers podcast. My good buddy, comedian Adam Hunter's on with us. What's up, Adam?
What's up, man?
Long
Congrats on the podcast.
Thanks. That's almost like saying like congratulations you woke up. Like congrats you got a podcast nowadays is basically like you figured out how to hit record on YouTube by yourself. Hey, you've got a podcast. You've done so well for yourself. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen you since like the Legends days.
I know, that's crazy, man. Legends, that's like some OG stuff. That's right after that's when like Legends, the MMA gym in that's what you're talking about, right? Legends the MMA gym. And yeah, so like that was we bamboozled a bunch of people into thinking like Randy Couture, Carl Parisian, and a bunch of UFC guys were like teaching at this gym all the time. They like lent their name to this gym. That's Eddie Bravo taught at, and Chris, God, I can't remember Chris's last name.
Chris Riley.
Chris Riley, yes, Chris Riley. Yeah, that was a good spot for a minute. God, I can't imagine what rent was like there. Holy shit, right in the middle of Hollywood.
No, it was crazy. They had like a cage on the sidewalk.
Right. Like it was like the worst idea ever. And it was like 7 feet by 7 feet. It was the smallest cage. And like Scott Epstein was always out there like training and stuff and talking shit to people walking by. And it was like the best representation of mixed martial arts you could ever
People were on a sidewalk. They had to walk around a cage with fighters like fighting each other, like in the middle of the sidewalk. And then I walked in there and there was all this drama because I guess like one of the female instructors like dated 4 of the guys, but like none of them knew it.
Was that Roxy? That had to be Roxy.
Roxy.
I think it was Roxy.
I was trying to keep her name out of it, but okay.
No. But she's probably super proud of dating 4 of the guys because like those were like some like if that was like a reverse and it was like I was a guy who dated these really like awesome, sexy women, right? Like I don't know what the equivalent of like if you're a chick and you did some MMA like jacked dudes, but so yeah, Roxy, who's I think married to one of the fighters
Tobe.
now.
He was dating Tobe. And then I remember going in there and I took Connor Hume's wrestling class. And then they all of a sudden Dan Hardy walks in and they're like, hey, here's your new partner. And Dan had like never wrestled before. Like his wrestling was like, I mean, he was like, so it was like, I was doing well against Dan Hardy and he was such a nice guy. He was getting better. But then like a month later, he's like, I'm fighting GSP. I'm like, right. Good luck with that, man.
You should work wrestling. Yeah,
but he went 5 rounds. I mean, I'm like exaggerating it for comedic effect. I worked with him a lot, but I couldn't believe it. I was like, because he was knocking everyone out. I didn't even understand mixed martial arts, like, because I remember Connor saying like, man, I wouldn't want to fight Dan Hardy. I'm like, why? You were just like throwing around the wrestling room. He's like, no, you don't understand. It's a difference. Like, and that's when I like started realizing how important like having knees and hands were, because I was like, holy shit. But there was him, and then I remember Mac Danzig was my first instructor there, and Mac and me were doing live jiu-jitsu, and he submitted me like 10,000 times. I never did jiu-jitsu before, and I'm rolling with a guy who's and I was like mad. I was like throwing my headgear, and he's like, "Hey man, if it was a wrestling match, you would have won." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point."
You wrestled, right? Didn't you wrestle for a while?
Yeah, I wrestled in high school and college for a little bit, won states and stuff. But that was a crazy gym. It was like. And then you were there, and then that was when you were on Human Weapon, I think it was called, right?
Yeah, so like I was like in the middle of that was like a transitionary period because we did the pilot for Human Weapon, and I was always like fighting, right? It's like I was always like picking like up a random fight here or there so I could like pay the way to like try to do acting and shit. So I like we did the pilot for Human Weapon and like nothing happened, but I was always training and fighting. So in the meantime, I got picked up by the UFC from the pilot, so I was supposed to fight. What the heck was it? I was supposed to fight Spencer Fisher at UFC 60. It was the Matt Hughes Hoist Gracie card. And like I started training for that. And then we figured out like the show got picked up and I wasn't really like I was conflicted for some reason on what to do and I asked Joe and he's like, yo, don't fight if you don't have to. So but yeah, like I was training there and like guys like Carl Parisian were there all the time. Randy would be there occasionally. But yeah, I remember Tobe was there. Did you ever spar with Tobe? He was like always trying to murder people when he fucking sparred. Like that guy had no control. Dan was fun to spar with. Like Dan had really heavy hands, but like you knew if you fought Dan Hardy, like if you took him down, at least in his early UFC days, if you had decent wrestling and good jiu-jitsu, and good jiu-jitsu back then is like very shitty jiu-jitsu now. Everyone now is like a stud, right? Like, I mean, it's crazy to see how the UFC has evolved. But like, he was fairly one-dimensional at that point. Like you were talking about, but yeah, that was a crazy spot, man. Like how fucking insane the like crazy like amount of schools that Eddie Bravo has been able to like just freaking everywhere is a 10th planet now. It's like McDonald's.
Yeah, the thing about his schools, I feel like a lot of times I'll go to jiu-jitsu class, and a lot of times Planet places, the kids get way too stoned before the class.
Right.
And they think that they're gonna like, as he's smoking pot.
Yeah.
Like, or they'll come to wrestling practice stoned, and I'm like, not a good idea. Maybe in jiu-jitsu, but wrestling practice is not a good time.
Or striking. You can't be like stone striking. There's certain things that like marijuana enhances. Like your ability to counter punch is not one of them.
It is not a performance enhancing drug.
I think Rogan has a bit about it enhances many things, like colors and taste and shit. But yeah, no, that's crazy. Like I could never, when I used to smoke weed, like Joe used to smoke and like work out and train. I can't roll high. I just feel like I'm like gridlocked. I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. I can't work out high.
Yeah, I get way into my head when I die. And then you were dating a girl, right? You were like dating.
Yes, that's true. No, it's totally fine. Yeah, I mean, I think like every MMA fighter at some point dated a porn star or a stripper. For sure. Yeah. I feel like those two worlds just became symbiotic at some point. I don't even know what the fuck happened. Like there was a union meeting and like every stripper was like, you know what I got to do is I got to date someone named War Machine.
By the way, back to Tobe. Have you been following his drama a little bit?
Tobe's drama?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen or heard of Tobe in 10 years. He moved
to North Carolina and opened up a karate gym, but there was a couple other karate gyms in the area, and he was like going there and like dojo storming the gyms. Like he was challenging their karate guy to a fight.
Like legitimately doing that, not like some YouTube stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm putting it on but everyone's like, get out of here. We're calling the cops. Like it didn't go like.
It's like, this goes so much differently when I watch like the TikTokers do this. Like Master Ken is just so welcome everywhere, and he talks shit the whole time. It's crazy.
He was like walking into random karate gyms, and they were like, "Get out of our gym." And he had like 3 people. It was like, I was following it. And then I'm like, what am I doing in my life? Like, why am I like? Then I was like actively searching this to like laugh.
Really? I gotta watch it. I didn't know Tobe was still doing anything in that. But does he have a background in karate? This is the first I've ever heard of him having any. Or did he just go, you know what? I can just get a karate black belt on eBay and fuck it.
I think he's a Muay Thai guy. I remember him fighting.
What I thought.
I remember seeing him fight like a guy that was like Malapan, I think his name was.
Malapan.
The guy was like a 303 or something, and Tobe held his own against him. I thought he won the fight. He just kept throwing punches and kicks the entire time.
Was that at like the Palladium or something in like Hollywood, or where was that?
It was in a place where it was like down in Orange County or Riverside at some casino. My friend,
yes.
I had a friend named Peter Kalchovic who always fought a guy with one arm.
He always fought a guy with one arm? That's like a thin talent pool to find guys like.
He had like 3 fights against a guy with one arm.
Same guy.
The guy would beat him though, like a lot of times.
I don't want to laugh because this is not going to be a podcast sponsored by the ADA anytime soon. It seems like, but like, okay, so wait, he legitimately fought a guy with one arm and he lost 3 times.
Yeah, but he says the guy cheated. Like the refs were always giving it to the guy with one arm. Because but
what's his name? Like, but what's that Bellator cat had one arm and like was murdering motherfuckers?
Nick Newell,
Nick Newell's like, so like you like I think in your head you go, wait a minute, like how many times do you get beat by a guy with one arm before you start deciding maybe this isn't my fucking sport? But then you got a guy like Nick Newell who's going in there and like legitimately crushing guys in Bellator and knocking guys out and submitting.
He was using his guillotine a lot. Like
yes.
He had like some crazy guillotine where had grip strength that like other people couldn't get to because he had one arm. He was grabbing like, and that wasn't the only thing he was using, but Nick has like, he was really hard to go against. It's like sometimes it's harder to go against those guys. Like there was a guy wrestler named Anthony Robles. Remember him?
Yeah.
He had one leg.
Yeah.
And but he was like, normally he would have been like 200 pounds, and he was benching like 450.
Right.
Because he had one leg, he was like 125. Still benching like
450. Right. Yeah. Just humongous.
And people were always going for like switches on him, but there was no leg behind them. So they were like from the bottom reaching for a switch. And you're like, oh shit.
The ghost switch.
I have nothing. There was a guy one time that had no arms, no legs. Remember that documentary?
About I don't know.
Kyle Maynard. He had no arms, no legs, and he became an MMA fighter.
Oh yes, I remember hearing about. Yes, I remember this. And they couldn't find him an opponent, right? Yes, I was saying they couldn't find him an opponent forever.
Lose to a guy with no arms, no legs. I mean, that's so. Then the guy, but then they made it change the rules where you couldn't kick him. you couldn't just line up and just punt them out of the cage, you know, or like pick them up like a football or something, you know. So the guy just like jabbed him. The guy who won just jabbed him for like 3 rounds, you know.
I wonder if like that's crazy. Like, I guess I see both sides of the fence, but like, how do you feel good about like pulling out a win against that guy? Like, how do you walk out of the cage and was like, what does someone say? Hey, good fight. Like, no shit.
You know, I think what you have to do is, I think it's a great way to start a conversation with a girl. Be like, hey, I'm an MMA fighter. I'm 1-0. And then you get your friend to be like, yeah, he beat a guy with no arms and no legs. And then they start laughing and they go, really? And then you could then, you know.
You just start from there. And then he can just go on that tangent of fighting only guys with 1 arms. And then from there, he's like, I'm working my way up to the big leagues, guys.
And he'll limit fight.
Oh, jeez. That's horrible, man. Like this. So like,
how do you even train for a guy with no arms? I mean, they should do. They had a documentary on the guy with no arms. They should documentary on the other guy, because how do you
bring guys in to emulate that style? Like,
yeah, you have to get a guy who was like on his knees.
Yeah, like you're just like it's bad. Like there's nothing you can say there that's not like, in my head I have 700 edits going before I say anything just about like what that's gonna look like. But
it really happened though. I mean, I remember they interviewed.
No, I remember.
White. Yeah, there was a whole documentary on it. And I remember watching it. The guy lost, but he really won. I guess the guy makes a lot of money doing public speaking.
Yeah.
The guy with no arms, no legs. He goes around to schools to inspire kids, you know.
Can't make a career doing MMA, evidently. Well, I mean, he's 0-1, right?
Well, I mean, think about it. But he's probably like one of but I mean, you'd book him though. How many guys are there on that circuit? With the guy with no arm, no leg circuit.
Yeah, I mean, like, at least one, bro. Like,
yeah, like
you could be like it's. I mean, I guess it's tough because I remember like there was a real hard time for him to find an opponent. That's the thing that stood out against everything. And like there's a couple guys. I know that there were. I forget who. There's a few MMA guys that have fought guys, or at least wasn't it Diego Sanchez fought a kid that had Down syndrome, or he was slow because he couldn't find someone.
No,
I know there's a guy.
No.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I understand like the dynamic. Like there was a guy out here that I know that Stephan Bonner's in seminars for. I think Garrett, and he has Down syndrome, but he like trains. Like I watch his videos and I'm like, God, I can't be lazy. Like he's over here like doing like fucking deadlifts and squats and hitting the bag. And I'm like, God, how am I gonna like make an excuse and not like go out and just go work out today?
But the Diego thing, I almost felt like bad, like because I'm watching that he beats the guy from Down syndrome who beats Diego, right? And then everyone's raising his hand and like we're pretending that he won. Does he think he won? Like in real life?
Of course he does.
Because
100%.
But now he's gonna go to a bar or something and think that he beat a guy in the UFC, and now he's gonna get murdered. Like
right.
I think we're setting this guy up now for failure.
Well, but that's every karate guy ever, though, right? Like you go to a martial arts school, you learn karate, which is the Down syndrome of martial arts, and like you go to a bar afterwards, and now you think you're this tough guy because you know 73 different ways to do like boxes, squares, and shit, and then you like now you have this false sense of bravado. Like, bro, like you better back off because my buddy is a fucking black belt in Kyokushin, and you're just like, what? And that guy comes out.
I almost don't even want to get my kid into karate. Like my daughter, my wife's like, "Could put her in karate?" I'm like why? Like I like a part of me is like, yeah, I know it'll be good for her as far as like mentally and discipline and stuff, but is it really going to help her if she needs to defend herself?
Right.
You know, is like Kia and like, is that really gonna? No one's gonna leave their hand there for her
Save your money.
Grab.
Yeah,
so.
Vinny. So Vinny here has been just smoking weed constantly. Cheech is he's a black belt in Taekwondo, so which is almost as bad as Taekwondo though. Like when we did that stupid show, that was the one episode I was really concerned about because I'm like, man, like there's some brutal fucking knockouts in Taekwondo when you connect, and like Cheech here was a Taekwondo black belt, but like in terms of karate, I think like it's one of those things that if you go into it and you realize this isn't like a self-defense, it's just going to teach you like discipline and like learning and how to learn. And then you get into a real martial art. So I think that, but like, cause I think that like, right. Like ideally you'd put a kid into jujitsu, boxing and wrestling right away, but that's a lot to dump on a 4-year-old.
Yeah, no, 100%. I actually, when I was, I coach wrestling now, I've been coaching for 15 years. And in the beginning, I couldn't get a babysitter. So I was putting my kid in my baby Bjorn. and like coaching with my kid in the Baby Bjorn, and she loved it. She just loved the chaos and thought it was hilarious. And now, like this year, I told my athletic director, because I live in Woodland Hills and I got to go to Brentwood to coach, and it's like an hour back.
I'm not making 405, or is that the?
Yeah, the 405. And I'm like, listen, I got to pick my kid up at school, and it's just going to be, I can't coach this year. He's like, well, what if we give middle school kids credit for watching your daughter? Because we want you to coach. We love having you, blah, blah. So now she comes, and then these kids come and play with her for an hour and a half. And she's like, she has the best time. She plays with the pig at the school. They have a goat. They have bunnies, and they chose to dance. And it's like, it's the best. So it, like, kills two birds.
Yeah, that's great. So do you get, what does your wife do? Because it sounds like a lot of the time is you're playing full-time dad.
She does marketing. She does marketing. Okay.
So she has like a 9 to 5. You have more flexibility in your schedule.
Yeah, 9 to 5, and then I do comedy obviously at night, and then stuff during the day, and try to podcasts or acting. Like I had a part on a TV show last week, which was good. I signed an NDA, so I can't even say what the show is, which is like annoying because like half the fun is like bragging to your friends about the show, so then I have to wait for it to come out and then screenshot it. Right. And then but then we just did we did a special for the UFC last week where we had I hosted it and closed it, and then we had fighters telling jokes. So we had Henry.
Who wrote the jokes? Okay, well Henry's pretty funny, but like who wrote the jokes for the fighters?
Chappelle wrote his own jokes.
Right.
And then Dean Thomas did his own stuff, and then me and Henry worked together on his jokes.
Okay.
Yeah, it went really well.
Yeah, Dean's funny. Chael's funny. That's a good mix. Dean's funny. Chael's funny.
Are you still living in Florida?
Yeah, I'm still in Florida. Yeah, I'm right. You're in Vegas, right?
No, LA.
Oh, LA. Well, did you live in Vegas? Or you just travel there all the time?
I'm just always there. I'm always in Vegas.
Okay, and that's so you're like so you're right down the street there in LA. Are you still training at all, or?
It's just, man, during COVID, I was living like in LA. I was going to Renzo Gracie, opened up like a 5-star. So I was doing jiu-jitsu, and then I tore my ACL doing 10th Planet.
That's funny.
I was in lockdown, and some kid put me in an electric chair sweep, and I rolled out the wrong way. So that was like 2 years of my life that I wish, like full tear, recovery. And then I went back to jiu-jitsu and got put in the same lockdown and almost did the exact same thing. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, so then I started doing Muay Thai, and I'm like, okay, this will be better for my knees. And I was doing that for a while. Then COVID happened, and that was back when everyone's like, the gym closed, and they were having the gym like practice at like in like parking lots or something, or
you had to wear hazmat suits. It was fucking
everyone's wearing masks. So I went out and got this thing called Fight Camp. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like an app that they give you like all the like boxers and this, Shaney Rush.
No, not familiar.
I think about from Orange County. A bunch of like fighters and ex-fighters give you like workouts every day, and it's like Peloton for boxing and for MMA, and they give you like a punch tracker, so it tracks how many punches you throw, and then you get on like a leaderboard. And they give you like an hour workout, like with like calisthenics and stuff. So I've been doing that like 5 days a week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
But no, I'm not like training anymore.
No, how old are you?
43.
43. You look much younger, man. You look like you're still like in high school. Works out well.
High school.
That's good.
What about you? Now, why did you stop fighting?
Because that was a shitty way to make a living, man. Like,
but you were winning. You beat like some really good guys.
Yeah. So I never really wanted to be a fighter. So it was a byproduct of just training and doing martial arts. So like in a real short nutshell here, my like martial arts training, my formal year started when I was like 16 in like 1996. It was a JKD school that was bringing in the guys. So like I was just always doing gi jiu-jitsu and stuff, and like the gi jiu-jitsu turned into doing some like local MMA events in like the early 90s, and that just became kind of the way to like make a few bucks versus oh shit, I got to get a 9 to 5. But like at the time, especially like, even when I had my contract with the UFC, like UFC 60, like the pay was 2 and 2, 4 and 4, 6 and 6. Like it was abysmal. I mean, like 2 and 2 to go fight, for those of you guys that are watching that don't know, 2,000 a show, 2,000 more to win. And like you had to get your MRIs, pay for your own shit, cornermen. Like you legitimately could fight in the UFC, even win your first fight and still be out of pocket or like at a break even when you factor in the cost of training, coaches, commissions and stuff. So there really wasn't like a lot of money in it. Now, it's getting better, in terms of like, no one's leaving the UFC on a 3-fight win streak and not making at least $100,000 their first outing. But like that was never my driving ambition. I mean, I was like in New York studying acting, and then in Los Angeles studying acting, and yeah, it was just kind of like a back burner thing.
Where did you study acting in New York?
Circle in the Square Theater, and like I did a Meisner program there. So yeah,
oh nice.
Yeah,
those are the best. I did Win Hammond and Alice Spivak, like HB Studios, Stratford.
Oh yeah, sure.
Those were like legit, like those were like plays, like like you actually felt like an actor.
Yeah.
In those classes and stuff. But I'm looking at you were 18-6.
That's
and then you won your last 2 fights. You lost to Jimmy Smith. You lost to Thiago Alves. That's a fucking big one.
Yeah, Pitbull's tough.
But you beat a lot of good guys.
Yeah, so it wasn't just like it was a weird mix, man. Like I said, I never really like wanted to make that like the main goal. There wasn't really like I had a contract with Strikeforce, Pride, and the UFC, and never fought in any one of them. I think that was probably the smartest decision of my life. So like I've always just kind of had like my own way to like make something happen, I guess, and been entrepreneurial. So just like even Human Weapon, like the way I found that was, you're in the entertainment industry, most auditions come down through like the hierarchy of agencies and shit. Human Weapon I found on like the MMA.TV underground forum. Like I was just surfing on the forums one day and they were like, yeah, they want to do some show, and I was like, what? And Drew Fickett was living with me at the time. And we both like sent in an audition tape, and I told my manager, and we were all just like, this is probably just some bullshit. And then they had the auditions in right after the first season of Ultimate Fighter. Like they had the auditions in Los Angeles, and like Chris Lieben was there, and Alex Karalexis, and God, who else? Josh Koscheck, Eddie Bravo. And then they had like a bunch of like karate and taekwondo guys and stuff. And I forget who was in charge of casting, but it was like the guy had only really cast porn up until then. And that kind of became because that, like, what else says History Channel? Like some porn casting. And so that was just kind of a weird situation that ended up being a positive one. But yeah, like I never wanted to fight. I think like if you like, there's so many guys that are in the UFC that are or fall out of the UFC, I should say, because they just lose that passion and that desire to fight. Like I think like looking at like even like Nick Diaz when he fought Robbie Lawler this last time, like just going into that fight, I put a bet on Robbie because I was like, man, like I was initially like, oh, Nick Diaz all the way. Then hearing him talk about like, this isn't a good fight, and I don't know why I'm doing this. Like it felt like his head wasn't in it. And as soon as guys like they don't feel like that's like their fucking burning passion, so like you got to take a lot of lumps training and amateurs, and until you get that first payday that pays any real bills, it's 5, 6, 7 years of just getting your ass kicked, and like passion has to get you through that because money can't do it, And like when I see guys that just they start falling off of that wagon, or the other side of the coin is they start having those opportunities like the Randy Coutures and the Gina Carano's, where now they're so famous that now they're getting pulled in all these directions that are like more lucrative than wanting to go in there and go get punched in the face for $400,000. They can go get a movie for $3 million.
Right.
So
comedy's the same way. I mean, there's no point of doing it unless you're gonna go all in. I mean, that's kind of why I dropped out of college. Like I wrestled like in high school. I went to prep school in Maine, and then I won the New England's 4 years in a row, Class A New England's, and then I got a scholarship to Binghamton. And then to Hofstra. Tom Ryan gave me a scholarship, and I didn't want to go D1. So I'm like, I'll go D3, and then I won't make it my life. And then I quickly made it my life, and I was losing. And in college, no one gave a shit about the wrestling team. Like in high school, I was a stud. Wrestling D3, it's like, and then I wanted to start, so I was losing like 15 pounds a week. I was getting up to 150 and cutting to 34 every week, and eventually I just kind of broke. I'm like, what's the point of this? There's no pro. I'm the only happiness I'm having out of this is when I'm on the wrestling mat, but the rest of the 23 hours a day, I'm miserable. And I just quit. And that was like the hardest thing I did was quit. But then I was like, well, now what am I going to do? Like, I'm just like everybody else. Cause wrestling kind of was the only thing that made me feel special. And then I had confidence in myself. So then I started a TV show at Binghamton called These Nuts. Cause I was always pranking like the local TV station, and like pretending they're trying to have like real conversations about race relations, and I'd be like, yeah, like Devane said, like who? I'm like, Devane and my dick, and I was just like hang up the phone. So then I'm like, I want my own show. so I went out there and I pretended to learn the equipment, and I had my wrestling buddies on, and it was a 3-hour show, and people were then started calling and making fun of me, like, are you Vanilla Ice or Corey Haim or all this shit they were saying, everything that I was saying to other people. I'm like, motherfucker. Then this girl came on and she's like, everyone's gonna talk shit about me anyway, and fuck her and this and that. So then she comes down, and then someone that she hooked up with, a guy named Seth, was like, this girl Hannah's a whore and she talks shit about me. Then they're going back and forth. It became Jerry Springer basically, and this is all live. So then I'm like, so then Hannah's like, I'm gonna come defend myself. So she comes down to the studio, jumps in front of the camera, and she's like, that guy Seth in Bingham Hall's a piece of shit, and he's fat and this and that. And then I had a guy putting stuff in the bottom of the screen, like saying, because then all the calls were about her, like, you're a whore, you got me, you gave me herpes, you gave me crap. She goes back to her dorm, they start throwing water balloons at her. She drops out of school, sues the school for $20 million, sues me for $20 million, and then sues this kid Seth for $20 million.
That's an arbitrary number. Just how much you want to sue him for? $20 million.
It goes to the Supreme Court. It goes to the Supreme Court of Brooklyn, right? And they threw it out. But my dad's like, you go to school for 3 months, you come home with a $20 million lawsuit. Can't you go to school like everyone else? And my dad's furious. But after that, I'm like, this is the most fun I've ever had. I got to get my own talk show. This is hilarious. And then I was like, I dropped out of college, like with like a year left, and I pursued my career as a comic and an actor in New York City. I was there for 10 years, and kind of the rest is history. But so yeah, that was like my foray into show business.
How do you, when like, I've done stand up once, and it was hands down the most rewarding and terrifying experience of my fucking life. Like having fought guys like Thiago Alves, or like been in scenarios where I've had guns pulled on me. No, like getting up there, like, and I was probably 13 shots into the night too, because I was so like, and I was like, you know, like I had no timing. I was like trying to get through my material as quick as I could. And like, I was like, this is fucking, it was terrifying. Were you nervous the first time that you did stand up, or were you just like, fucking let me just have fun at it?
The first time I wasn't nervous because I didn't realize how bad I was. It's like when you don't know how terrible you are. Yeah, you're like, oh, anything close to a laugh, I thought it was a great set.
Yeah,
I hadn't watched. I'd watched other comics, but I didn't watch them live. I was only like 19 years old, 20 years old. It wasn't until I started like getting pretty good at it that I realized how bad I was before. But I mean, it's the only time I would ever really get nervous is when I would do like a college conference or something, where if I'd have a good set, I would get like $100,000. And if I bombed, I would leave owing 10 grand or something, you know, like that was when, with like those type of shows, or when I did the Tonight Show, I did Leno, and like I sweat so much they had to blow dry my armpits because I had like just pit stains, and then when I put my shirt back on, I like missed a button. So my first time on Tonight Show, everyone's like, you don't even know how to button your shirt. It was because like 30 seconds before that I'd taken it on and off. So that's when I would get nervous. It was like when those types of things, when it was like Last Comic Standing or Tonight Show, or those things that you can't redo.
Right.
You know, like if I have a bad set tonight, which I probably will because it's a shitty venue and blah, 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 I could always have tomorrow night. But you're not going to get another Tonight Show set for another year or two, or if ever. So that's when it's like I get nervous about. Or when there was like a hot chick in the crowd and I was single and I'd bring her, and if I got laid was depending on how good the set was.
Right.
You know?
Right.
That's when I would get kind of nervous.
Yeah, like so. I was you know, like Joe was, because I fucked around with the idea of doing stand-up for a long time, and Joe was like, look, if you can make your friends laugh, you can make an audience laugh. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just start, like the way that my process for like writing comedy was like, I'm not a brilliant person, but if I was out with a bunch of friends and I was telling a story, or we did something organically that made everybody like laugh, I'd try to remember like, what did I say, what were we doing, and I'd like try to write it into something. So like that built up over like several years of being anecdotes and like scenarios or witticisms and shit that were funny. So I was telling Joe this, and you talked about pressure and getting nervous. And I think the reason that I didn't do stand up for a long time was I used to go with Joe to like the Comedy Store every weekend, and like, you know, Joey Diaz was there and shit. And like Joey Diaz goes up, then Rogan goes up, and then Rogan knew that I had like was like fucking around doing stand up. He's like, Chambers, come here. And Joey Diaz is like, yeah, Chambers, come do some fucking stand up. I'm like, you think that like my first time doing stand up should follow you and fucking Joe Rogan at the Comedy Store? Dude, my dick went like it wasn't a fun. I was like, nope. And then forever. So in my head, the barometer for suckage was so high because I had just watched high level guys forever do comedy. And I was like, this isn't good. I gotta leave. I gotta get off stage.
I mean, he's right though in the fact that like you are good when it's like making your friends laugh, but it just takes years and years and years of being comfortable enough to act the way in front of a crowd that you are your friends.
Right, for sure.
And the thing is that you can't buy that experience. It's kind of like people go, oh, a lot of times people do jiu-jitsu and they go, how do I do stand up? I'm like, well, how do I become a black belt and never tap?
Right.
It's not going to happen. It's like, how do I do comedy and never bomb? Like I can't ever become a black belt if I don't tap along the way. And I don't think there's probably a guy out there who never tapped as a jiu-jitsu guy, you know. But that was my problem. That's why I tore my ACL, because I read Phil Davis wrote a thing. I told myself I'm going to go to practice and not tap today. And that's what I did. And then I took the fucking ACL got blown. So that's.
But did you tap?
No, I still didn't tap.
Then it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because
yeah, right.
You should have read the book that said I'm going to go to train today and not get injured.
Yeah, right, exactly. But yeah, comedy, it's the biggest high. I mean, it's the biggest high. It's the biggest addiction. It's a complete drug. You know, you get hooked on the laughs, and there's really nothing like it.
I guess a guy like Brendan Schwab's probably only that know, but like I would imagine, and my like comedy set that I did was so quick. Like I was like up and out. Like I was like, let's get the fuck out of here. I didn't stick around to see anything. I blacked out for like 5 minutes. But the idea of like when you win a fight, it has to be that same kind of like, it took a team to get here, but this is just the thing I did, and that like adoration of I succeeded versus God, I failed, and like the high and the low of that must be very similar, I would imagine, to what like when you like just crush a set, you're like on top of the world, or you bomb, you're just like, oh fuck my life, I can't wait to go like hide in a corner. The depression.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I mean, there's been times that like I've been on cruise ships where you bomb and you're stuck on a ship with everybody. And then people are coming up to you, and they're like, "Oh, it's the worst." If people come to you, you want to like leave the boat. Hey, that's the comic. I thought you were funny, or tough crowd, or or they give you fucking backhanded compliments, or like, "Man, no one was laughing. That must have sucked." You're like, I get it. I was there. So, you know, there's definitely that.
Well, that's like when guys suck at fighting, and like the worst thing you do when you like you had a shitty fight, and you get out, and someone's like, "Bro, good job, man. Hey, look, you did a good," like, you don't want to hear, and you want to hear, like, if anything, you just want to be like, yo, you fucking sucked, get better. Like, all right, cool. I respect that. You know, like,
right. But there's that. And there's also like times where like you kill, like when you're finally good at comedy is like when you can kill and think that you sucked. Like when you know you were off, but the crowd loves it. Right. That's when you're like, okay, I'm doing something right. And I'm sure we're fighting the same way. We're like, you know, you win the fight, but you know you did like so many things wrong that you could have done better. Mm-hmm. That's why sometimes you'll watch a fight and you'll go, and the guy will like destroy the guy. Will be like, yeah, you know, I give myself a 6 out of 10. You're like, wait, what? You know, as a comic, you don't want to say that because people will go, oh, maybe he wasn't that funny if it's only a 6 out of 10. You know, the hard part is when I feel like I'm letting people down by not doing new jokes. You know, where like I'm at that level where a lot of times people have never seen me before, most of the time, right? So people come and like you want to do like your shit that you know works. Right. Then you have people that come and see you all the time, and you don't want to do the same jokes for them because they're like, "What the fuck am I gonna do the same jokes you did 6 months ago?" So it's like, well, do I do the brand new jokes for the new people, or do I do the older jokes, or the old jokes for new people and the brand new jokes for that? So it's like that's when it gets kind of tough, where you have to kind of balance it. Mm-hmm. Or you want to have brand new jokes that make everyone happy, but that just takes time and effort, and like you have to then retire jokes. And you're like, well, do I retire jokes that no one's seen before? So then it becomes like a mental fuck. Like
when do you fade out the old shit and when do you bring in the new shit?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, if you have a Netflix special, then that's the easiest way to do it. But if you don't have that, it's like, and then people go, well, I've seen you do that joke, or like, I mean, there were literally times that I've done a comedy show where like it's all new people, but someone's like, you did that joke on YouTube. I'm like, okay, fine, you saw the joke on YouTube, but like the other 99 people did not fucking see, like fuck off, you know. Right. Or there was somebody that like is my biggest fan that was just yelling out my the like,
punchlines.
Yeah. Or like on the cruise ship, sometimes the same crowd comes to every show, so you got to do 5 different 30-minute shows, which is not that hard. You can do it. But 2 of them have to be G-rated. So I only have like 30 minutes of G-rated stuff. So then the kids come back and they're like, we heard this yesterday. Well, then leave, you know, but you're working with like the cowboy comedian or some comic that like, you know, the clown comic that goes up there and he has all new stuff because he's doing dance competitions on stage or he's doing the hands under the armpits telling story, like the hackiest shit you've ever seen in your life. Like yeah,
like
I can
the
have
cruise
9
ship
hours
comic stuff. Yeah, right. Like then he does the comic magicians next. You know, like
it's brutal. I mean, but I used to do kid shows sometimes. I would do like camp shows where they bring the whole camp to the comedy club. And the camp would be like a bunch of like 9-year-olds. And I get the ice cream spot, which like you think like the check spot's bad. That's when they drop the checks on everybody. So you're up there telling jokes and everyone's looking at like trying to do math or they're like, fuck, they added the tax or they added the drink. So like, wait, they added the cover on it. Like I didn't pay 19 or 50. And then they look at you like, this guy's not worth 120. And they're mad at you, right? But on the kid show, they would drop ice cream on everybody. So you got like an 8-year-old and you get those little ice creams with the half black, half vanilla chocolate and the kids go crazy. And then they don't want to hear you anymore. They're like, fuck this guy, like ice cream, ah. So I would get the ice cream. It's brutal. I mean, like those times, even my first special on Fight Pass last year, everyone's wearing masks during COVID. So I'm doing comedy and 50 people are wearing masks. So I don't know if I could kind of hear laughter, but I could, based on their eye movement, whether they like the jokes or not, or if they squinted. You know, so
that's funny, man. Did when you worked on the cruise ships, did you work on specific cruise lines or did you just work for one the whole time?
I would always be Carnival, which was like Carnival. It was crazy. I mean, it was wild. There was some funny shit that went down. Like the break dancers were hooking up with everybody because they would tell you can't bang the guests. Like you're not allowed to have sex with the guests, right?
Right.
But then they would give you like there's condoms downstairs if you hook up with the other cruise members, right? Which as a comic, it's hard to do because you're coming in for 3 days and they've been on there for 6 months and
so you're just in and out of when you're not like out for the 6-month tour or whatever.
Right. And then the dancers don't want to be like the one slutty girl who banged the comic, you know, and even getting up to the show. But the break dancers would come on and one time they would bang the girls that were like the guests that were coming, they'd have sex with the dancer. They were just cleaning up. And one time they went, these 2 guys, Curly Fries and someone else, they went skinny dipping in the Bahamas with like 3 girls. And then while they were in the ocean, the people it was at nighttime, they stole their clothes. So they had to come back on the ship just butt naked. And I was dying laughing. I was like
hilarious.
Laughing so hard.
That's funny. So do you have like, I know that there's a no fraternization rule when you're on cruise ships typically, but did you have the same clause as like a hired gun or could you just bang whoever you wanted?
No, I mean, you had to like, there were comics that were like having sex with the guests, you know, but you had to be so careful because if they caught you, they would fly you off the island,
really?
like in like a helicopter, or you'd be like confined to your room.
It's not that fun of a fun ship, god damn it.
And they have the security guards that are like super. I think a lot of times they didn't want like women saying they would get drunk and hook up with it. They're taking advantage. They just want
to mitigate the liability.
And like the Indian security guards thought they were like Magnum PIs. They would like go around trying to bust you. They were straight from India, you know, being on parole. And then so comics would like, or people would like wear their hoodies and go to the top deck and they would have a place they could hook up with the girls. But like even that became like you telling a girl, hey, what are you doing? Want to go upstairs to the top deck? They think you're going to throw them off this fucking ship or something. It's just, you have to be so careful.
That's what I used to always love about like, they'd have like the nicest people in the world, like the Filipino and Thai people, like the most gentle, small framed humans ever as the security aboard a floating prison effectively. Like this is, if you couldn't put like a worse person, excuse me, sir, please, sir, do not have sex with her over the railings. Like, you know, like.
There was a comic I knew, a black comic who took a girl down into his room and they missed like de-embarkation, which is getting off it.
Right.
So
yeah, it doesn't sound like they missed the embarkation.
So people were like looking for, they had like a missing person. So they had like the dogs out and everything and they were looking for them. And they went in the room and then they came into his room and they're like, hey, have you seen this girl? And he's like, no, I haven't seen, like, why? And he's like, why? Because I'm black? He started all that. But meanwhile, he was banging her. So she was hiding, she was naked in his closet. And then they opened up the closet and there's like a naked girl. And he's like, how'd she get in there?
That's crazy. That's crazy. She must be here from the last port. Yeah, that's funny. Did you like working the cruise ships?
I had like a love-hate relationship, you know, like when I was single, it was fun. It was like great. But then there was a part of me that was like, you get lonely on those things, you know, and I couldn't sleep because the the last show would be like at 1 a.m. So I'd be up, and then I couldn't. And then it was rocky. These little rooms, so I was taking Ambien to sleep, and then I got hooked on Ambien. So it was just I had to stop taking Ambien, which is also really hard to get off of. But like a part of me loved it because there were some fun cruises, but then they put me on like a Christian cruise, and that didn't go very well.
No, did you have to scale back all your material, or were you like, well,
they didn't tell me it was a Christian cruise. They didn't tell me. They were like,
but you found out during your show.
I found out as they were walking out.
They love these Jew jokes. That's crazy. That's
yeah, it was like a mass exodus.
No pun intended. Yeah.
And there was like a nude.
Tough crowd.
Yeah.
My friend worked on like a nude cruise, or like everyone was naked.
He's on a nude cruise. You got the Christian mingle cruise. So like you need to talk to your fucking booker, man. Like
the comics said they were like offended by his dirty jokes. They were naked. Like he was too dirty. And then the best were like the theme cruises, like when they would have like bands come on. Like I went on when Boys II Men was on the boat.
Oh no, shit.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But then like Richard Simmons had a cruise, but they didn't sell that many tickets. They only sold like 500 tickets or something. So they didn't tell anyone that people were there for Richard Simmons.
To a bunch of overweight women from the Midwest in leggings.
That's what happened. My friend was eating breakfast, and all of a sudden Richard Simmons jumps on the table and starts dancing, and then these fat people start getting up and dancing, and then people are looking around going like, the fuck is going on here? Like, why is that Richard Simmons?
That's like my nightmare, to be in the middle of a Richard Simmons flash mob. Like, no, how old? He's gonna be like 1,000 now. Like he was 50 back in the 80s, right? Like I mean, he was. That's funny. Bad. Sweating to the oldies. Nowadays, like oldies are like in sync now, right? Like that's
still
oldies
the same
officially.
Spandex.
I want to see him sweating to In Sync. That's what I want.
Well, they have a New Kids cruise, a New Kids on a Block cruise.
Do they? That was like your era too, right? You were like that was your first boy band stuff. Would have been New Kids on the Block. That was mine. It's like fourth grade or something for me.
Fourth, yeah. I went to the roller rink.
Yeah, remember what happened to roller rinks? That was like the ultimate like first makeout session at roller rinks. Like that was.
Are you from the East Coast too?
No, from Chicago. But we had like the roller rink, like that was like a big deal back in the day. The roller rink stuff.
I remember holding hands with my girlfriend and have to like I would get so sweaty. I have to like dry off my hands afterwards, like after each like good little lap.
Then like they want to like dance backwards. And you're like,
does this guy ever talk? I feel like this guy, the Tom Green guy.
Yeah, no, yeah, he's like a sniper. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's a zinger. He gets 4 lines per episode.
Is your parole officer? Is that what
that's effectively what it is. No, so Cheech is he's our production coordinator. He's the one that you spoke to. He's also a personal trainer and smokes a ton of weed. So we have a bet. This isn't the actual bet, but we have one of the bets is that he has to smoke 3 like super strong joints in an hour. So he just wanted to be on and like listen, and he's listened to some of your comedy and stuff. But this is the 3rd podcast he's set in on, and he said a total of like 9 words. So
he's great.
Well, really, I have a question for you. Is that
where do you think he's from? A question for you, not for
how you doing?
Yeah, it's
from Brooklyn.
That's right. Born and raised.
What part?
Bay Ridge.
I used to work in Bay Ridge.
No shit.
At Poly Prep.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was just a wrestling coach there.
All right, that's cool. I went to school up the street at the PS 104.
Wow, I was actually this kid that I used to coach on the wrestling team, who was the best wrestler I've ever coached, became a congressman named Max Rose. And he became a Staten Island representative. And he was like the best wrestler I've ever coached. That's when I felt really old. When a kid that I coached
became a senator,
congressman, I was like, holy shit, yeah.
That's funny.
Crazy.
Did I live in? I said I met Cheech here when I lived in Brooklyn. Did I live in Bensonhurst or Bay Ridge? I always confuse the two.
You were in Bensonhurst.
I was in Bensonhurst. Did I work in Bay Ridge?
Yeah,
that was the Dolphin. Okay,
yeah,
that's what I confused. Okay, so I worked in Bay Ridge. I lived in Bensonhurst. I got fucking bamboozled by my real estate agent too. Cause see, like in LA, in Hollywood, right? If you live like 5 miles away, you're effectively like right there outside of the time constraint. But in New York, it's like a fucking different country. Like I thought I was living in Manhattan. It's like 10 miles from Manhattan. I'm like, oh, perfect. It's right there. Bensonhurst, like fucking an hour and 30 minutes off the queue.
3 trains to get to Bay Ridge from the city.
Yeah, it's fucking insane. I remember so my first like acting gig was doing background work on like, what the fuck was it? Some soap in Manhattan. I'd have to get up at 3 a.m. to be there by like 6 a.m. to like fucking take a train to go make like $125. I was like living the dream. It's just dark. It's me at two crackheads and like a bum who's been asleep since Thursday.
Was it Guiding Light or All My
Probably
Children?
was Guiding Light, As the World Turns. That was my first speaking role on that crappy soap that got canceled. Yeah, Guiding Light, As the World. Yeah, that was like everyone that lived in New York. It was after like Law and Order or something like that. So the basics.
What was the question?
So from the times when you first started becoming a comedian and now, do you feel it's harder to create newer material because everything has got to be PC?
Ooh, cancel culture question.
Not really. Number one, I think that you know, I have a kid now, and like my material is a little different than it was when I was in my 20s. You know, I think I was a little angrier in my 20s, and so maybe. But I find that I don't worry about that at all. I think that the people that come to my shows are like thanking me afterwards. So like, thank you for not being PC. Thank you for being dirty. Thank you for saying this stuff, like, because they don't get to hear it at all. Like, thank you for not, you know, cowtailing to, you know, whatever the blah blah blah. Is that the word, cowtailing? I think it's made up, that word, but just to, you know, being that guy. So I don't think so. I think that it's harder if you're gonna put it on Twitter, you know, because Twitter's not a comedy club. I think people are like, oh, you know, they want to make jokes all day, which is fine, but you have to know where you can make them. There's not a comedy club that's gonna kick you out, really, if you say like the wrong thing, really, because a lot of times now before comedy shows they're saying, you know, by the way, if you're offended, get the fuck out of here. We're not doing that. They give you that whole speech beforehand. So no, I don't think so. Although when I started doing comedy in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, going to the Comedy Cellar and hearing like Jim Norton, Patrice, Rich Voss, those were like the guys that I studied, and the guys who nothing was off limits. The Robert Kelly, you know, it was one after another of the most fucked up shit you've ever heard. And it was hilarious, and it was great, and it was explosions in the crowd. And now you get people that want to, then I think for a while it was people that go out to become offended. But I feel like people are enough of, like, anytime someone gets offended and they leave, the crowd like claps when they leave, or they'll go, get out. Like, people in the crowd are yelling people to get out. They're kicking their hecklers for me. Yeah. So
Dave Chappelle just caught a bunch of shit this week because of some Netflix comment, right?
Yeah. And you know, look, I mean, did I like every single joke Chappelle said in that special? No, but was the show hilarious? Absolutely. Was it great? Yes. Was I laugh out loud throughout it? Sure. I'm not supposed to like every single joke. That's not the point of comedy. You know, I think people are I don't know if they're so self-absorbed, but they think everything is for them. And like, what is this? I mean, for my 3-year-old, if I'm watching a movie, I'll fast forward parts that are too much for her. But that's, you know, because she's 3. If you're a 21-year-old person going to a comedy club, the comic doesn't have to fast forward jokes for you.
Right. And you kind of you kind of sign a waiver of like liability when you walk into a comic club. It's not like you said, it's not Twitter where you're bombarded with some racial joke or some like homophobic joke that's made in tongue in cheek, just like you'd make fun of yourself. It's right. Not like that. Like, you walk into a comedy club, you got to expect that people are going to say some shit that you're not going to be okay with, or else don't go in there. Like, that's that culture nowadays. It drives me nuts. That cancel culture where like, it's like they're looking for a reason to be offended as opposed to just taking
it's like, and it's, you know, to me, it's like, what's the alternative? Like, we go to a club, nobody laughs, and there's a lot of comics out there that, like, I don't know, I'm not one of these comics that likes to go out there and make, you know, speeches and tell everyone what they want to hear and say things like, you know, racism's bad and men and women are equal. Yes, we know all that, but that's not really, there's other places you can go see that. People just go up there and make comments or everyone cheers.
Right.
Great. My job is to make you laugh. How I do it is on me, but I don't understand like why. I think some comedians, like, they take it upon themselves, like, no, I have to make a statement that okay, great. You know, it's like, everyone knows that. And for a while it was like Trump, everything was like anti-Trump, and not that I was pro-Trump, because I'm not, I didn't vote for Trump, but I did respect those comedians that were defending Trump, because I'm like, because you know they're gonna get shit. Like, right. Everyone's gonna fucking hate them, and I'm like, you know, that takes balls. It takes balls to do that, to be the person that, like, now is it something that I agree with, or but like it was almost like an easy trap to go, man, maybe if I become the Trump comic, I'll get more fans because there's like a void there. But that's not me either. I didn't want to be that guy. But I don't know. I'm not one of these comedians that goes up there that's just goes and just panders and says things for applause breaks, because it's like, okay, great. If I tell a joke that has that in it, perfect. But that's not my goal. My goal is to get laughs, not applause breaks. I think some people they think because they're getting a lot of applause breaks, they think that they're killing, but not really. I think people are kind of seeing through it now. Like, okay, I feel like I went to the show and people clap, but I didn't laugh, so that really wasn't a comedy show. Right.
Speaking of people collapsing at comedy shows, Bill Cosby's going to be touring again. Did how do you think that's gonna like go, right? Like, he's supposed to start, doesn't he say he's gonna start touring again, right, Cheech?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
how the fuck,
I'm
how do you fucking tour as Bill Cosby?
I'm looking forward to that.
What the fuck was he? Who was the person who's like, you know what you need to do now? You need to go out there and talk to everybody.
Probably his wife, because she's money to spend on lawyers and like, I don't know. I don't know what venue's gonna book him.
The consensus is gonna be serving pudding.
Yeah. I mean, that's the venue. The venue that's going to book him is going to take a lot of shit.
For sure.
So, I mean, but Louis C.K., everyone was like, he's done. He's selling out theaters now, left and right.
Yeah.
So, no, granted, I'm not putting them together. I'm not saying even close to what Louis C.K. did is not even in the same sentence. I'm just saying that people said he was done.
Right.
So I don't know what venue's going to book Bill Cosby. I think you'd have to really be like a.
I think at the stage that Bill Cosby was in, he probably has the money to just buy a spot. You know what I'm saying?
Like, well, I don't think we're gonna see the Bill Cosby like Netflix special anytime.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's gonna buy a spot how? Like, I mean, he's gonna buy his own comedy club?
He can buy his own location and then put it out himself, just like Louis C.K.
But that's not touring though. Like, he still has to get approval of the person that runs the venue. Like, you can't just have like a Klan rally at like a comedy place, right? Can you?
I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah, because like, I don't know, because I think that there's gonna be a curiosity factor too, right? I think that there's that double-edged sword. You don't want to go support a guy like Bill Cosby, but don't you kind of want to hear like, you kind of like, it's like watching a train wreck.
I mean, I liked his show, The Cosby Show.
Right.
His stand-up comedy was never like my thing, although people loved it. I think that people are sick of a double standard while certain people walk and Cosby gets locked up. So I think that a lot of people still don't believe Cosby should have did anything. A lot of people go, oh, listen, it was the 70s and, you know, those women had buyer's remorse and they knew what they were doing and they went, you know, but there was like 60 people,
right?
Like 60 of them. That was a lot, you know. I don't know. I think that like, it's like, but who am I? I mean, before R. Kelly got arrested this last time, you know, I was a big R. Kelly fan. And
did you watch that Michael Jackson documentary, Leaving Neverland?
No.
Oh my God, it was on Netflix. I had that dichotomy of, or that ethical conundrum, because I'm a pretty open-minded person, right? When it comes to stuff, like, I know there's two sides to every argument, political or otherwise, and I try to gather all the information to make an objective opinion as far from the general consensus as I can, and independently. You watch that documentary, Leaving Neverland, and it's got two guys on it. I forget one of them name. One was Wade Robinson, who was like Britney Spears and NSYNC's like dance choreographer. Yeah. And you listen to them, you're like, you watch that and you hit off there, you go, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that this guy was like touching little boys' assholes and like masturbating. Like, just the stories are too simple. And that gave me that thing like, man, I don't know how to feel now when I listen to a Michael Jackson song, because those songs back in the 80s and 90s, they were so informative over our years. Like, who didn't like Man in the Mirror, Bad, and Thriller? And now it's like, yeah, and like, but to think of what he was referring to is sweet.
Yeah, that's why with me, I can listen to Jackson 5, because that was probably before he like did all that.
Yeah.
So I think that if you can listen to the stuff when he was an innocent kid.
Well, that's a good point. Like, he gets he gets the cutoff. You got to like find out, when was that first accusation? Like 92. So we can listen to anything up until December of 91. Like, that's the balance, I think. That's good. Where are you touring at now, man? What are you up to?
Next week, I'm in Michigan. I'm in Lansing, Michigan, at the Funny Comedy Club. And then I got a couple, I'm in Vegas on like December 11th that week. I'm all over. If you go to adamhuntercomedy.com, got my whole website. I'm doing shows like every night of the week.
You ever come to Florida?
I do Naples a lot.
Naples. Was that north of us? Where's Naples into like Fort Lauderdale? I'm so bad with geography.
North and west.
Northwest.
I do a place called Off the Hook Comedy Club in Naples. It's a lot of fun. I was supposed to do a tour in Florida, but it got canceled. Supposed to go recently, but that's where you're at. You're in Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale. I'm like Pembroke Pines, I'm a suburb. But anywhere down here, man, if you're ever in the lower half of the state, look me up, man. I'll come check it out.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Where's the best place for people to follow you? Instagram, Twitter, what are you at most?
Instagram, Adam Comedian on Twitter, and MMA Roasted on Twitter.
Fantastic, man. Well, thanks for having you. Thanks for coming on. That's alcohol. Thanks for coming on, bro. I'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.